Hey, it's Elisha, and welcome back to another exploration of nervous system patterns, otherwise known as our subconscious programming, neural loops, or the ways we find safety unconsciously. That is, until we make these patterns conscious and begin to live in freedom. Today, we are exploring the nervous system pattern of groupthink because this is usually the birthplace of all of our nervous system patterns. We create nervous system patterns in childhood when our own natural and autonomous instincts bump up against whatever status quo environment we're being raised in. An easy target here to think about is religious environments or families who don't allow anything contrary to a religious narrative in their homes. Now, please understand, I'm not bashing religion. I'm not anti-religious. I think there is beauty and truth in all religions. And I also see how the very birthplace of oppressive instincts kind of came from or arose from our world's religions. This is often what started wars that changed the course of history. The conquerors would often subjugate their new populace and institute their chosen religion, while not allowing the freedom of assembly or faith, sometimes upon pain of death if you dared to disobey the new laws of the land. So groupthink is the contagious nervous system pattern of conformity. In order to feel the biological safety associated with belonging to a group. Historically, outcasts and heretics have been ridiculed, hung up in town squares to be pelted with rotten food or stones, driven from cities to fend for themselves in the wild, or even hung to death, beheaded, or burnt at the stake. And of course, more recently, we know about heretics and othering people, groupthinks based on the color of our skin, or maybe targeted by your faith by another group who feels superior to you and your faith. As human beings, we have written into the fabric of our biology a survival edict that compels us to seek safety among the masses or risk death. If you were a German in Nazi Germany, for example, that didn't agree with the rising status quo, do you think you would have dared to speak out? Most who disagreed with Hitler and his devout followers hid their true feelings, along with hiding Jews in their homes, because the truth and humanity were literally pushed underground. We don't often think about this in our modern world, though, assuming those days are long gone and belong to heathens, barbarians, and uncivilized humanity. But I challenge you to look at our modern world, especially in 2020, and not see that we are enacting those very same patterns, even if our tools of ridicule, banishment, and ideas about death and punishment, right, of the heretics have changed from burning witches and gassing Jews to canceling each other on social media or hurtling insults from the comfort of your home. Not that, these things are equivalent in morality or consequence, but these patterns are still very present with us today. I would be willing to bet that every single one of our families had or has some form of groupthink. I know mine did when I was growing up, and when I confronted my family about certain things, it didn't really go over very well. So the primary sign or symptom of having the groupthink nervous system pattern is the instinct to adhere strongly to a group narrative. Any group narrative, especially one that labels other people or a single person who threatens that narrative as selfish or insane. The enemy, again, could be a single person or an entire group of other people who have their own groupthink that is diametrically opposed to yours. For example, the term conspiracy theorist is used to dehumanize people today who believe certain things in order to get other people to see them as crazy and then banish them to the fringes of society as insane people. The term conspiracy theorist, in fact, was invented by the CIA after JFK's assassination to discourage people from believing any other narrative than the official one that JFK was assassinated by a crazy lone gunman, which has pretty much been disproved. So this year in 2020, we are seeing mass groupthink in action to kind of terrifying degrees. It's not just black versus white or red versus blue. We are allowing ourselves to be fractured into smaller and smaller silos where we become echo chambers of each other. And then we reject anything that doesn't fit with our small group narrative. And we make those other groups out there crazy, selfish, murderers, socialists, conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers, far left, far right, gun-toting crazy people, fake news, on and on, right? So when COVID hit in March and we were told to fear something lethal and deadly, invisible and microscopic, logic went out the window in favor of fear. And fear induces our base biologic instincts, survival at all costs. I've often said here on the channel that your brain would rather you be in pain than dead. Your brain would rather you be in pain than dead. And when it comes to nervous system patterns, it's equally true that your brain would rather you be in self-betrayal or self-delusion than dead. Your brain would rather you censor yourself than die. Your brain would rather you conform and survive than stand out and die. But surviving isn't the same as thriving. Surviving isn't living. Life, fully experienced, is inherently risky. It's inherently uncertain and mysterious. But any risk to our subconscious nervous system patterns will cause us to believe at a base biologic, unconscious level that our survival is in jeopardy. So you adopt whatever feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are dominant in the group you belong to, and then you act them out without even having to think about it. Here's what I challenge you to consider today. The people we love to admire the most, our heroes and heroines, the people we look up to and learn from in stories, whether they're in movies or history lessons, most of the time, those people were the ones who stood out. They were the heretics, the rebels, the ones who dared to question the status quo. They were the Galileos and the Da Vincis, the Joan of Arcs, the Paul Reveres, Thomas Jeffersons, Native Americans like Black Elk, Sitting Bull, and Crazy Horse, the William Wallaces and the Scots, the Fighting Irish, Amelia Earhart, the Anne Franks, JFKs, Robert F. Kennedys, the Martin Luther Kings, Nelson Mandelas, Rosa Parks, on and on. So who do you think are those people today, right now? In my opinion, they most certainly are not the people repeating and propagating common group narratives. In my opinion, the heroes among us are the people risking their jobs and their lives and their reputations to speak out against tyranny, to help humanity, to offer a different and empowering perspective. They're the people sharing cutting-edge science instead of the pay-to-play science that is regurgitated on mainstream news that perpetuates another certain groupthink within the scientific community. So I'll be transparent with you. My heroes right now are Del Bigtree, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Pete Evans, David Martin, Mickey Willis, Andrew Wakefield, J.P. Sears, Sean Stevenson, Kelly Brogan, Sayer G., Dr. Tom Cowan, Andrew Kaufman, and many more. My personal belief is that what we're seeing play out on the global stage right now is a reflection of our individual levels of consciousness and freedom. Unfortunately, right now, I see more conformity than courage. By and large, I see groupthink instead of individual critical thinkers. I see people getting canceled, and I see this celebrated, even though we supposedly live in a free country with free speech laws and civil liberties. I see people practicing and sharing fear far more than wisdom. The heroes I mentioned earlier are the ones sharing wisdom. We are not free beings when we organize our lives around the biology of group survival. We might feel safer, but safe doesn't equate to a life filled with meaningful challenges that help us get to know ourselves and each other as individuals. It doesn't help us gain our wisdom or grow our courage or any of the beautiful traits we possess as human beings. We might survive, but our quality of life will diminish significantly. So how do we break out of this pattern? Number one, notice when your instincts are to join in on a group narrative, repeat a group narrative, or condemn any group outside of your own as wrong. Why is this your impulse? Just observe yourself and be willing to see yourself honestly. Number two, get to know yourself. Who are you really? What do you think, feel, or believe as an individual? not as part of any group. Number 3, align your feelings, your thinking, and your actions in line with your core values and choose them wisely. Number 4, learn to think for yourself and critically question everything in life, including the thoughts in your own head. And try to see if you can figure out where those instincts for survival are coming from. Number 5, speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Number 6, get okay with being misunderstood or ostracized by the group you're currently in or any group. Number 7, spend time in your own company or the company of birds, bees, and trees. Learn from them about what it means to be unabashedly yourself and live fully while you're alive. Number 8, identify as many of your own nervous system patterns as you can and scratch those records. Make your own music and live life to the beat of your own drum. Number 9, realize that this is a practice, maybe even an experiment. And as such, you get to change course, pivot, play, hit the pause button, and begin again whenever you choose. Just make sure you do it out of freedom instead of being dictated by your survival biology. And finally, number 10, if your friends and family wonder what's happened to you, tell them you joined a cult, the cult of you, or the cult of life, or the bee, or the tree. In all seriousness, some people in your life might feel threatened by your emerging individuality if this is new. That's because they feel safest in groupthink, and your weirdness, your differentness, your opinion, your individuality, your sovereign actions may go against the grain. They threaten the supposed safety of the group, and that often isn't tolerated. So you might have to prepare yourself for a life lived at the edges of society, a life of fitting out rather than fitting in. And if you're anything like me, you'll feel a lot of terror at the idea, but it will also feel right. And if you're outspoken enough, well, you just might have a bunch of weirdo friends waiting for you who will love you for being you, even if you're different than they are. All right, well, that was it for our groupthink nervous system pattern breakdown. Maybe it ruffled a few feathers, maybe it shook things up here. I kind of hope so, because as I said in the beginning, if you really think about it, if you're interested in this thing called nervous system patterns, this is the birthplace of all of them. Because imagine for a moment, if you had grown up in a family or a community or an environment that encouraged every single one of your unique instincts and impulses, even if those instincts and impulses were to question your parents, question the status quo, question society. Imagine for a moment if, as a child, people actually said, wow, that's a really unique way of thinking about things. Thank you, let's talk about it, right? Instead, most of the time we're shot down, we're shut down, we're shut up physically, emotionally, in some kind of way. And this is actually why and how we learn to adapt to our social environments to stay safe. So really the birthplace of all of these nervous system patterns is around maintaining connection to a group. Right? That's why the pattern that I've talked about before, the different patterns, right, of silencing yourself, self-censorship, self-betrayal, self-denial, all the things we've been talking about in this series, all of them pretty much, almost all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them originated out of bumping up against a group think pattern and then being told that we in our individuality are wrong. We're, and not only that, if we continue speaking up, we might be punished or banished or, whatever. And at the nervous system level, this is considered tantamount to death. It's like a death threat. So we adapt, right? So I hope this made sense to you. I hope you'll consider thinking about it. The way that I tend to look at it all is I want to get to know you as an individual. Like, what do you really think about what's going on in the world? Even if we totally disagree on who our heroes are right now, that's okay. I told you who mine are, but I don't expect you to have the same heroes as me, right? But if you're picking heroes for yourself that are part of a group pointing to someone as the hero of that group, I don't know, is that a free choice for you? So it's just something to think about. Thank you so much for watching this. If you feel like it'll benefit anyone in your life, I'd be grateful if you shared it. And please leave your comments below. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on this video. So thank you, and I will see you next time.